Did you hear that? There's something in the cupboard.
Let me check. What? Hi.
Wait, Val? Is that you?
Yeah, hi. You told me to come back when I got holy water, and I had the kid cast a spell, and ow! I have had worse landings. I've also had better landings. Jesus. Stars above.
Let's get you out there and unpretzel you.
Yeah, definitely. Gee, I thought I was having one of those claustrophobia nightmares where I was packed into the crates again. Never doing that again as infiltration. I don't bend that way anymore. Ugh.
Anymore.
Yeah, when I was a kid, my parents would be like, we need to get you into a scenario and they can't have kids in here. So, get in the box and we'll put you into storage. You grab what we need and get the hell out of there. It was a whole thing. Your parents never did that with you?
Yeah, I remember when I was a kid and I was packed into boxes all the time.
Well, see, now you're just making it sound so dramatic.
Wait, what do you mean as a kid I still do that to you?
I thought you stopped doing it after last week. Anyway, Val, glad to have you back. I think that when we spoke last time, you were talking about the exorcism.
Yeah, managed to get that all cleared up, no claws, as you can see. And I'm not, as pale as I could be.
You don't have a demon in you anymore?
Oh, no, that's all cleared out. Like a bad cold.
So you just had to sleep and got rid of it?
Well.
Would you like to have a seat and tell us the rest of your story?
Sure, yeah, I think I can do that.
Hang on, I think one of your legs is still bent backwards. You might want to fix that.
Jeez. Ugh, alright, crick in the neck. I am too goddamn young to feel so goddamn old. So, exorcisms. Right, that was Iron Shelf. Yeah, that was the whole thing. Ugh. That was possibly like the first of Iron Shelf. I'm coming to the conclusion that I just don't like Iron Shelf. It's a terrible city. Well, I'm sure the people are lovely, but the layout, the structure, and no.
What was the city you were from called? Hammershire?
Yes. I am originally from Hammershire, but we spent most of my time in Dragonsback these days. Literally built on the back of a skeletal dragon. The whole thing.
Must be a big one.
Oh, yeah. Nidhogir was quite the beastie, apparently. I wouldn't know. It happened, like fucking decades before I was born, but,
Old Niddy.
Yeah. So, figured out all of the exorcism nonsense, but we popped back from Iron Shelf to head home. Storm Festival season. It's the beginning of the storm season. We got a life we gotta live. We managed to pop home, and as we were popping home and paying our dues to the consortium, giving them all they wanted from the various capacities, and not telling them that we had killed our cargo, because why on earth would we do that? Let them believe he is safe and sound back where he belongs, and, we haven't taken a demi-witch off the playing field.
Okay.
And we're settling in for a fun storm festival, and we're having a great time. We're, eating fair food, we're interacting with some friends, and then we get an invitation to go up onto a Ferris wheel, and we're like, well, this is sketchy as hell, but we'll do it. And it's fire cold, an absolute rat bastard of a man. And he pulls us in and explains to us that, the consortium do indeed know what we've done. And we've technically, in doing so, violated our contract. And we are about to find out what the consortium does to those who violate contracts. And we all got an image, and they murdered a woman.
Oh.
They murdered a friend. Even if we didn't know her very long, they murdered a friend because we made the right decision. And we all kind of, at that point, knew, this partnership was definitely not going to work any longer. But we didn't have time to think about that, because we also had to figure out how the hell we were going to get to the capital and go to a ball, because our political benefactor wanted us to attend and get our next quest update problem. So we managed to start getting up and getting set up, and then we realized what the consortium meant. And we got the first assassin invitation. This one, at least, Sheriff, had the decency to send an invitation and a meeting place and a time, and said, come as you are.
I think it's kind of common courtesy when assassins book a time with you.
Yeah, if more assassins booked the time of day, I would have to sleep with one eye open most of the nights, but here we are. First assassin sent a courtesy letter, and we, interacted at the ball and pretended we were normal for all of 10 minutes before our political benefactor is saddling us with yet another member of the team.
From the stories you've told me, that seems like a very difficult task to pretend to be normal.
Yeah, well, we only managed to piss off one diplomat as compared to our usual 6, so a fairly normal day. But we picked up Millie, and they basically said, if she dies, you're fucked. And we said, well, we're not going to tell you about the assassins then. So we picked up Millie, and we attended the ball for a little bit, and I managed to get some personal things sort of cleared up before we went out to meet the assassin. Sheriff is lovely, by all accounts, a decent man. You'd hate to see him die, but he went up to the fighter, handed the fighter the dueling pistols, and they set off trying to kill each other. Someone forgot to tell him that Dio is basically indestructible and a bit like a cockroach, and we're also armed to the fucking teeth. So while we swore not to interfere, because, if we interfered, breaks the law of the game, we're all at viable fault. So we let Dio sail of it. And they just couldn't fucking kill each other. So eventually Sheriff called it a draw and said, fuck it, I'm done, we're done, I'll give you information if you want it. And so we said, yes, please, who else should we expect to be coming after us? And he's like, well, here's all the people I know took your contract. There was a succubus, Celeste. Dio had met her earlier. She's kind of fond of him. Dio seems to attract women who want him dead, but also, cannot survive being around him for more than 10 seconds because they all keep dying. You gotta have a high enough constitution to survive the disintegration ray to try and woo Dio, and we haven't been successful yet.
I'm sure there's someone for him.
Sure, but gross, it's Dio. Kid's a nightmare.
So, were there other assassins except for the sheriff and Celeste?
Oh yeah, there was Ronan, who we were told were a bit unpredictable, and also there was 3 of them, and one of them might have been a frog. It's a whole thing. The storytellers, who were sort of weird trio of creatures, they were easy. They didn't put up much of a fight, and basically we offed them immediately. And then there was Wenwolf, a werewolf who could time travel, but only in one direction. She was also easily dispatched, and partially dispatched by a fish.
Oh, okay.
Dispatched by a fish.
Yeah, we managed to find a really strong pike who managed to hold Wenwolf hostage just enough to hold her stable enough to get her to get stabbed multiple times. It was great. We love Pucius.
It wasn't that she was allergic to fish.
No. Oh, and there was also the Catman. Forgot about the Catman. Catman had some sick-ass weaponry and absolutely nightmarish fucking cats. They only did chill touch and magic missile, but ow, I'm in pain. Judy tortured him to death with Phantasmal Killer. Don't fuck the wizard! She's 14, but you don't fuck with her! But it's okay, they managed to kill her once anyway. We had to reincarnate her, it's a whole process. Put an angel in her head by accident. Don't know how that happened. She still hasn't told us. But yeah, that was a whole thing.
And you managed to survive all these assassination attempts?
Oh yeah, well, so survive is a strong word, it implies that we didn't have, access to reincarnation or revivify or what have you.
Uh-huh.
Judy, we managed to reincarnate, like I said, put an angel in her head. Millie got decapitated once. That's the sort of thing that you gotta go higher level than what we had at the time. So we had to negotiate with an archbishop of one of the churches that are still around. And as much as I don't vibe with the church, this archbishop's okay. He's a vampire, but, he's okay. Basically asked us to go rescue his brother from some fucker hanging out in the swamps and the cult. We managed to swindle that pretty easily. Destroyed the vampire with a strong gust of wind and some very heavy beating.
Strong gust of wind?
Yeah, so he was kind of falling apart at the seams, sort of a disease of a creature.
Uh-huh.
And once we got him beat up enough, he sort of just flaked to pieces. We burned him with sunlight first, and then he flaked him to pieces.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, we rescued the other vampire, who was then promptly had the shit beat out of him by his brother for killing a bunch of people. We got Allie forcibly transformed into a wood elf, which was not a pleasant experience, I imagine, but that's what visceromancy does to a person, apparently. Nasty stuff, visceromancy. We haven't fully understood it yet. We try not to think about it too hard. But yeah, we got Millie resurrected, no big deal. Millie then gained an unhealthy non-fear of death, because she discovered that if she dies, she just goes to her godfather. Mind you, I say godfather, and you're all like, oh yeah, some dude in the afterlife who's, was close to Millie. No, I mean a literal god who might be her father. We don't know for certain. She calls him dad. keeps asking to convert, if you ever meet her, if she asks you about Delilah, you just say yes.
Oh.
I'll make sure on that.
Is she the one that turns up at the cave at weird hours and just hands you pamphlets?
If she doesn't have a bird skull, then yes. If she has a bird skull, no. That's her doctor. He might want to try and sell you on the seven gods. Don't take Saturday Holy Water. Just don't take Saturday Holy Water.
Why not?
Saturday Holy Water is just cocaine.
Oh, I mean, yes, absolutely not. Kids don't do cocaine.
Yeah, don't take Saturday Holy Water, kids. But yeah, so we managed to put Millie back into one piece and got all suited up and said, okay, side quest achieved. Now we need to figure out what the hell we're gonna do and actually finish our trip into the Northern Wastes. Yippee. Fuck the Northern Wastes. If I never go to the Northern Wastes ever again, it'll be too goddamn soon.
What's wrong with the Northern Wastes?
The Northern Wastes are a tundra. They are frozen. There is a giant-ass prison you never want to go to. They are deadly. There are so many things running around there, and you can't see it right now because I've got, decent clothing, and because this is all a dream, I have decided to not have my major scarring. But I have a giant Remoraz scar from the first time I went into the Northern Wastes, and I just elected that, going to the Northern Wastes ever again is a bad idea. Just a terrible idea. 0 out of 10. Wouldn't recommend. Definitely would recommend to my enemies, though, because I think the enemies would just fucking die, and I think that would solve a lot of my problems. But, yeah, no, the Northern Wastes kind of suck.
What in the Northern Wastes?
Well, there are Yetis, and Treadies, and Trolls, and Remoraz, and a guy calling himself the King of Beasts, who may or may not be an orc, I know. It's hard to tell, but I think that might be Kronk. There was an ancient white dragon that was bopping around, but that said dragon was killed by a hag. Long fucking story. I gotta get to the hags. Jesus Christ, I gotta talk about the hags. Oh god. Everything about Iron Shelf is terrible and bad. But, we're talking about the Northern Wastes. All of that is to say, if you survive a trek into the Northern Wastes and make it out alive, you must be at least a little insane. So it's a surprise when a merchant's guild puts out a request to hire adventurers and crew to, go to the Northern Wastes and pick up some people and, quest for gold or what have you, whatever the fuck merchants want. They're insane. Well, we needed money, and we needed to pay the new crew we had just hired because, we lost a good chunk when we went to Grey Shale, and we needed enough to function as a ship, and, well, we also needed to hire storm mages because it's storm season, and without a storm mage, you're basically screwed. By screwed, I mean in literal pieces, at best.
From a storm?
Yeah, so storm season is a bit weird here. Basically, I now know that it's less of a storm and more of the elemental plane of storms passing through, which sort of just rock the world for a season and then fade away when it passes by and moves on. So it's a bit much, so to speak. It's a bit much.
I once flew into a tornado and it took me like an hour to get out.
Yeah, that'll do it. That'll do it. But essentially, storm mages put a bubble around your ship so your ship doesn't get, absolutely rocked to shit. Because at the end of the day, songwood is just wood.
It doesn't sing?
It does sing. Each ship has its own song, which is how they register and catalog what ship is what. Kind of interesting, actually. I've never understood all of the mechanics of it because I'm not a druid, and I'm also not a ship hand. In spite of my qualifications to the contrary, I am very much a bad deckhand. I just sort of work there. But yeah, no, it's interesting. I don't quite know all the songs the ships sing. There's the Vrock, the Cantabile, had a really pretty tune. Sort of eerie and haunting, which makes sense considering the ship's called the Cantabile Vrock, which is basically singing demon, which makes sense. But the Redwater Jewels tune is lighter, sort of quicker. It's a fast ship, so it's a little bit of a lighter tune.
The Redwater Jewel.
Yeah, that's the ship that got gifted to us after the woman who got murdered died. We found her will, and her will left the ship to Morgaine. Except, Avion laws say he can own 2 ships. He can't captain both of them. And since he was already the captain of the Cantabile Rock, he agreed to let Dio captain the other ship. Dio was ecstatic about this. We actually now have to call him Captain Dio, and if you tell him I actually said this, I will, lie and say I didn't. Because I refuse to admit he's a captain. He's 18. He can't have that sort of power.
You can't let the 18-year-olds have that kind of power. Absolutely not.
Yeah, correct. So we avoid that. And yeah, we set off because, again, we needed to get the crew paid. And in setting off, we ran into trouble because we're incapable of not running into trouble. And Zix showed up. Fucking Zix. We don't know what Zix is. All we know is that he's some form of shape changer who wears other creatures' skins like suits. He's got a preference for slads. He's shown up as one of those twice. And I think he's still bitter about the time we walked around his elaborately trapped dungeon and decided to declare us his mortal enemies. The feeling is not mutual. He's a thorn in our side that keeps getting more annoying every time we run into him. But, he showed up with the Silent Vessel, which is never a good sign.
What sort of song does the Silent Vessel have?
It doesn't, hence the title. It's a death ship. You don't know it's coming until it's basically on you. And it's crewed by undead, so it's a bit of a nightmare.
Who's controlling the undead?
We don't really know. At the time, Zix, but who's to say if he hired them or simply enchanted them? But he was taking the form of a death slad, so maybe that was the reason they answered to him. Hard to tell. But anyway. Undead. Fucking so many undead. There's this giant lizard thing. I don't even think we got the full answer about what the fuck the giant lizard thing was, but it was fucking huge. And it was a skeleton, and it was trying to eat us. Deeply unpleasant experience. Nearly ate our storm mage, which sucks, because we need our storm mage, again, to survive. Sort of gave her hazard pay and time off once we got the opportunity to do so, because man, we put her through a lot. Shout out to Cerna. Cerna deserves the world. But in the whole mess of combat, Zix has this thing where he really doesn't like to lose, so to prevent himself from losing, he disappears. And this time he decided to disappear with Morgaine. Twist the knife, as it were. And I couldn't do anything. I just had to sit and watch and try not to pass out from blood loss, because I was looking pretty rough when it happened.
Oh, you had to fight a lot of skeletons and stuff.
Yeah. And then once the fight was done, we couldn't go after him. We had a job to do. We had to get the crew paid. We had to get us paid. So we continued trekking to the northern wastes. We managed to make it there. Mostly in one piece. We didn't put a giant hole in the bottom of either of our ships, which is, a miracle, considering that's what happened the last time. And we traveled across the plains and traveled across the tundra, managed to make it to the archaeological site, which was a giant lighthouse, a place I'd actually been before. Fun fact, it's the reason I know how to read Dwarvish, because the one time I'd spent too much time around ancient Dwarvish, I could have seen some warnings, and because I didn't, you never let the same mistake happen to you twice, sort of thing.
Well, at least not 3 times.
Yeah. We managed to make it to the dig site. We popped a hole in the ice, and we went underwater. It was an unpleasant experience.
Did the ship survive that?
No, we left the ship back by the prison, back by the docks. We all went on sled dog sleds and took a container with a fire elemental in it, basically plunged the fire elemental into the ice, and it cut through the several layers of ice, and then we sort of all got into diving suits and crawled the diving bell down.
Where did you get the fire elemental?
I don't ask questions I don't want to know the answer to. They managed to put a fire elemental into basically a glass container. I don't ask questions I don't want answers to.
I think that's our job.
What do you think I'm asking it?
To ask questions.
So we crawled into the ocean and to what remained of the bottom half of the lighthouse. We were told to look for treasures and valuables and things that could be pawned and sold, and we certainly did that. Found a bunch of books and stories and religious artifacts and a god or two. There was this massive observatory. It was huge, sort of unfathomable how big it was, and there was a telescope that was functioning. And we found the notes of the guy who was doing the research, and we, sort of scanned through it, and we rearranged the sky to how it looked possibly that night or several other nights just to see if it all still worked, and it was projected, so it worked. It didn't need to go through all of the ocean water. And we found one of the visions of the night sky, and we looked where the telescope was pointing. Well, I didn't look. The fighter looked. And then he passed out. And we don't really know what happened. He won't tell us. But Dio passed out. When he woke, there was an eyeball in the sky. Or there had been an eye in the sky. And apparently it happened worldwide. We don't really know the full ramifications yet.
Was it where they were looking up?
He looked at a star wrong, it looks like. Sort of side-eyed it wrong and, well, passed out. There was an eye in the sky. When he woke up, he said, cool, I feel okay, maybe a little smarter, but otherwise I think I might have just met something I wasn't supposed to.
The star heard he was talking shit.
I guess.
Or maybe if you look into a telescope, it kind of looks like you're winking if you just blink. So the stars might think that you're winking at them.
I don't really know the specifics. Again, a lot of mild godly mumbo-jumbo that I don't fully know the answer to. I think it was calling itself Vecna, maybe?
Vecna, the giant eyeball.
Something like that. I think we called him Petulant Child.
Ah.
You called the eyeball Petulant Child?
Yeah. Anyway, we went deeper into the temple, and we found more fish folk. And they all spoke telepathically, which was deeply weird and deeply disconcerting for the kid, who basically lives in a psychic field, which is never a good sign when the kid's trying to reach out psychically and is finding things saying, hi, pack. But we wandered in, and we found a chamber, and it looked like 2 things had been sacrificed on it, an angel and a demon, and we learned the secret of the universe.
Oh.
Yeah.
What is the secret?
Well, technically speaking, I'm not supposed to tell you, but you're unlikely to come to my dimension in any capacity, majorly or otherwise, so I guess I can sort of tell you. The planes in my world have all been merged together for about thousands of ish years, and that is the reason the world sank and the cities were risen. I don't live in the material plane, so to speak. I live where the gods were supposed to live. And as a result, most of the gods have taken to hiding on demi-planes. A couple of them still wander around the cities trying to get a bid for mortal souls. Or as Millie put it, she once told a god his religion sucks to his face.
Oh, okay.
I mean, all right.
Yeah.
And it ended up well?
It was a whole kind of convoluted thing. Millie telling a god his religion sucked to his face, just sort of seemed demoralized by it, but kept continuing preaching on the street corner. We had other things we had to do that day. And as a result of learning the secret of the universe, sort of the whole calamity of things, but we got the angel out of the kid's head and accidentally sort of made a bunch of stars fall out of the sky. The best way I can figure it is that it was just angels finally ascending, and so we lost a bunch of navigation stars, so the whole world has to relearn how to navigate. Sorry, that was us.
You all seem to cause a lot of things to happen.
I would like to disagree with that, but unfortunately, I really fucking can't. But we, then had to still look for things, and the fish people were getting antsy, so we agreed to meet their leader. Something calling itself Xerxes. Xerxes, by the way, was the guy who was the king before all of this went down. Sort of was the guy who enacted the worlds merging together. But he was dead, so we're like, what the fuck is this thing calling itself that? Like, that's a hell of a choice name to do.
Oh. And now he's just the king of the fish.
Now he's just the king of a bunch of fish, yeah. But he said he wanted to be our friends. And said, I'd be happy to help out in some way. Ask me anything and I'll give it to you, within reason. And Millie, never one to turn down weird friendships, said yes immediately. Hell, she was practically the reason we had to go looking for him, because she managed to fall down a hole, and oh god. One of these days I'm gonna put a leash on that kid.
It's kinda mean to put a leash on someone and put him in the cages.
You get a little knapsack, you put the leash on the knapsack, and you make sure you don't lose them, because they wander off.
Yeah, but it's kinda mean to do that.
I think it might be better to just tie a balloon to their waist.
That might also be a working choice. It'll just depend. I'm not convinced that she won't float away. She's kind of small, but we will see. But where was I? Ah, yes, the giant fish god. So, I asked for Morgaine, safe and sound. And it worked, kinda. I got a good illusion. Great illusion, actually, except the memories were all wrong.
What do you mean? The memories were all wrong?
Yeah, when we learned that Zix could puppet people, he did it to the kid's dad. He can only replicate certain early memories. The farther back he goes, the harder time he has connecting to those memories. I sort of crafted a shorthand questionnaire to test to make sure that if anything, any version of Morgaine got back to us before we could confirm we'd gotten to him, a quick checklist run through to make sure that Zix wasn't puppeting him. I got all the right answers to that, but I then asked something more personal, something that couldn't be replicated via memory, a feeling, an urge. I asked, and it gave me the wrong answer, and I knew something was wrong. By then, the others had picked up on it as well.
So it wasn't the real Morgaine?
No, it was one of the fish illusioned to look like him.
You killed a fish?
Yeah. And then we killed the god, because absolutely not. You can't do that to us. So, we never learned what it was. It was just big and psychic and terrifying. But it was dead. We managed to grab our proprietor, who the fish people had psychically fucked up so badly he was basically a walking corpse with very little brain capacity left. And we got back to the surface. We brought the trolls and yetis and treadies, who we told we would bring to the cities and introduce to Grass, because we needed the crew for the other ship, because Zix had managed to basically kill off all of the merchant vessel's crew. So we needed a second set of crew hands to make sure we could, get to where we needed to go. And we started heading back to the ship, loaded everything up, and we started traveling back towards Iron Shelf. And when we did, we realized that we should probably check in on allies and on enemies and see where everybody is. And we had a scrying session, one where we didn't have anything major we had to account for. And so I made the selfish call. I asked to look for Morgaine, and we found him. We found a rough approximation of where he was. Dio, agreeing with me for once in his life, said we go after him. And so we sort of prepped for the worst heist in history. I don't frequently heist people. I heist objects. I heist things. Heisting people is just kidnapping, and it gets messy.
Kidnapping with more steps.
Yeah, basically.
Unless you put them in a box, then it's...
Unless you put him in a box.
Technically, it's stealing because you steal the box.
Yeah, well, I think it's just called a jailbreak. Yeah, we'll call it that. We'll call it a jailbreak. So we managed to, by a miracle, teleport in. Limbo's weird. Limbo does fucky things to magic.
You teleported to Limbo?
Yeah, because, again, the planes are all merged together. The differentiation doesn't make any sense. Plane shift at this point is basically just a really powerful teleport spell. So, Limbo is a place you could travel to on a casual Friday, Hells might be in the mountains somewhere, we just haven't found it yet.
Like Shangri-La.
Sure. So we popped ourselves into Limbo and started to free Morgaine and had to beat up Zix, who looked like a beholder this time, which is a pleasant change of pace. You've never seen weird until you're looking at a beholder in a giant feathered coat that looks like a rainbow puked on it and an absolutely bombastic feathered hat. I'm never getting that image out of my brain. I think it's just going to live there now. And so we're trying to do our best to fend it off while we free Morgaine and grab him so that we can teleport the hell out of there. And while part of us are just like, okay, we've got him, let's go. Dio is like, no, if we can stop Zix and prevent him from ever coming back after us, we'll kill him. And then we're like, no, Zix has this nasty habit of disappearing before he actually fucking dies. We may just kill this form, not this version. And anyway, Zix got away by a miracle of God.
Oh.
Maybe. We don't know, but he got away.
Which god?
We don't know. We don't know many, actually. We know an angel or two. What did the kid say that the new one's name is? Nisthail? I think that's the new one's name. Last one was Regalia. He's kind of a bitch. Apparently a multi-eyed tiger. But this one's just, a decent dude. Zix got away. But we managed to get Morgaine, who looked worse for wear. And we managed to start getting him healed for a couple of days. And then we learned the consequences of learning the secret of the universe. The god, Pan, showed up. he's a chaos entity, nature as wild, so to speak. Not to be confused with Lithica, who is nature as agriculture. Pan is nature as wild, as uncontrollable, as like growing like kudzu. Sort of once it's there, it's never going away, even if you pull it out at the root. And he said, entertain me, because I have not been able to talk to anyone in so long, because no one has known the secret. But you all know. Entertain me, or I turn the entire ship into trees and kill everyone on board. And we, being the intrepid heroes that we are, managed to figure out some form of answer. We sort of suggested that he do something incredibly lawful. What's more chaotic than a chaos god doing something incredibly lawful? And he agreed with us. Said, sure, I can do that. What lawful thing should I do? And Millie, in her infinite wisdom, suggested marriage. Just a wedding ceremony. And we all sort of looked at each other going, Millie, are you sure about this? And she said, sure, it'll be funny. So she went to two of the crew and asked if they wanted to be wed. And we sort of looked at her and said, we can't let this 18-year-old get married to two random crew members for the sake of a god. So I stepped up to the plate and I sort of went to Bellamy and Morgaine. That was another stipulation. It couldn't be a normal wedding. So we just polycule weddings. Why not? So I went to Bellamy and Morgaine and I proposed the idea. Just, hey, marry me for spite and tax benefits and to make sure this god doesn't kill us. And Bellamy pretty much immediately said, sure, why not? Sounds like fun. And Morgaine took a little convincing, but basically agreed that so long as any real paperwork was held off until we got to port and he could change his will, we would be good to go.
So you married Morgaine?
Nearly married Morgaine and Bellamy. I don't know if I've mentioned him yet, but we hired him during the events with the assassins. We needed another combated hand on ship, and he was a bodyguard. Had a bit of a reputation. Apparently, he had killed someone in his care, but he explained it as sort of something he did after the contract was done. Killed him. But has a bit of a reputation as a flirt and as someone who sleeps with a lot of his clients, and he's not bad. He's a good man. He's just chaotic. And, well, I can't say that I don't not have a thing for chaotic men.
Chaos is always fun.
Yeah, he's decent, and he's kind. Well, maybe not kind, but he's nice. And he's funny, and a little bit charming, and, well, we got along. And I was perfectly content with us just, getting along. I was trying to figure out what the hell Morgaine and I were doing, You tell someone you love him, and then he tells you that he's technically your superior, and so he can't say it back, and also he thinks he's given you the wrong idea, but then you go to cut things off, and he says, actually, I still need to work for you because I need money to repair the ship that you put a hole in. Not you specifically, but the crew, have put a hole in, and that would no longer make me your superior, and I still kind of am fond of you to some capacity, and I'd like to see where this goes, and all of a sudden you're joking around, and then you accidentally manage to get the man kidnapped by mere association to you and your crew, and all of a sudden you're standing in this pile of what in the hell are we doing, and then you nearly all get married for reasons unbetold to you, because you need to convince an 18-year-old to not do something stupid, and you need to convince a god not to kill everyone you know and care about. Then you banish God, and the wedding doesn't go through, and you're standing in a room together on a close quarter ship and just going, hey, what do we do about this?
Wait, you managed to banish the god?
Yeah, so the god started the whole wedding process, and Dio objected because he's like, this is stupid. I'm not gonna let a god run around and control this ship and tell me what to do when I'm the fucking captain of the ship. And the god said, great, on whose behalf are you protesting? And he's like, fucking pick one. And so he was gonna fight Morgaine, and Morgaine is well aware that Dio could kill him in a single punch because Dio is absolutely insane as a person. So he was like, hey, just go easy on me, man. And Dio's like, I'm not gonna fucking lay a finger on you. Absolutely not. We're not doing this. Then Judy, coming to her senses, was like, hey, a god's just a god. Maybe I could banish him. And so she cast banishment, and he disappeared. It worked by some miracle.
This sounds like a situationship more than any other I've heard of.
I don't know what it is. I pulled them all aside and said, what the fuck are we? Like, are we gonna talk about this? Are we gonna pretend it never happened? We live in close quarters. The crew knows what the fuck we're doing. We can't just not talk about it. And we all agreed to sort of see where it took us. And we were not gonna, ignore each other and crawl to opposite ends of the ship because it just wasn't feasible. One of the few things the god did manage to do before, getting banished was he gave us this magical uplink, this blessing. I always know where the other two are. The other two always know where me and the other one is. So I always know where Bellamy and Morgaine are. Bellamy always knows where me and Morgaine are. Morgaine always knows where me and Bellamy are. And you'd think it's a blessing, but when you're in a situation where you can't feel it, it's nerve-wracking. It's fuzzy. It's like feeling a phantom pain that you don't know where it's coming from because it's clearly not coming from you. At its best, it's a strong tether. It's a rope that you always know the direction of. But without it, it's like a phantom pain, and it's terrible. We have this connection now, and then I went and accidentally disappeared for 3 months.
You accidentally disappeared for 3 months.
Yeah.
What was it like?
Did you know where you were?
Yeah, I knew where I was.
On holiday?
It wasn't 3 months to us. For us, it was 8 hours. But to the crew, it was 3 months. We got back to Iron Shelf, and while we were there, we were like, okay, we're gonna go back into the Candle Temple we started in, and I got my last exorcism in. We're gonna finish the temple, and we're gonna find out what the hell is in there. And we found it. We found a bunch of crazy, insane monks who tried to kill us, and almost managed to, but we managed to hold out by the skin of our teeth. We went in deeper into the sacred sanctum and found one non-crazed monk who basically explained that, yeah, the ones outside had gone crazy around the same time they had started punishing the people who had led the original... It's a temple to the god Candle, and Candle is in 7 pieces. And the original expedition that had led people into the temple, a monk had been too kind and had allowed them to come in and had allowed them to see the corpse. They killed him, and they dissected him into 7 pieces and put them into containers and then spread them across the isles, spread them across the cities. And the monks, in response to the kindness that the monk had shown, tortured him for several thousand years. And they had all gone insane on Ichor and were basically husks of people by the time we were dealing with them. And we offed them. We returned the one body part that they had managed to grab to its tomb, and it did something. We had dinner with the guy who really just seemed like he needed a bit of company for a time being. And we told him that we'd killed the outside monks, and he said, okay, well, I'd been bunkered up in here to avoid them, so that's a good sign. And we told him that we were preparing to head out as well and find the other parts of Candle. And he, wished us luck. He said, you could stay the night. And we said, we really can't. We have to go. What felt like just 8 hours for us, it was 8 hours. We swear. We exited the temple, and we knew that something was wrong. The blessing came back when I was in there. I hadn't been able to feel it. It was all fuzzy, like it was reading through sludge and water.
The marriage blessing, or?
Yes. We stepped out of the temple, and I was able to find it directly above us. They hadn't left the city. Dio pulled out his sundial and realized something. What had been 8 hours for us had been 3 months on the surface.
Oh.
Yeah. And so we had to figure out what the hell was going on upstairs. Apparently, a war had broken out. It had always been brewing under the surface while we were gone. Sort of a known quantity in the back of our minds, knowing that the Navy was gearing up for a rebellion and the Druidic Council was going to pretend to hold power, but we got back up and it had broken. Something had happened and it finally started in earnest.
So what happened to your crew?
Our crew got mostly hired by our political benefactor, the High Overseer, Frath Delorium. When we had disappeared, they were still on the ships outside of the city. And when we hadn't immediately come back, I don't know how, but Frath sees everything. So he hired them as bodyguards and as protectorates to ensure that they were still together by the time we came back. He couldn't get all of them. Some of them left to go do their duty. We had druids on the ship to fix things, and they went to go join the council's army. We had Tanaruk with us, who went to join the army. Apparently, our paladin had gotten into a fight and had been sent off to prison, and we're thinking about breaking him out, but we weren't really sure if we're going to have the time. But the crew had been able to stick together, which I don't have a lot of opinions about people in power, because people in power fucking terrify me. But for keeping our crew together, I am deeply, deeply thankful to Frath. And when we got back, we realized two things. One, Frath was not in possession of his permanent sending stone. The consortium had managed to grab it off of him and was planning on kidnapping us. We managed to see through the disguise of the guy whose stone had been grabbed, and we basically convinced him, tell us everything you know or we'll fucking kill you. And he's like, listen, I don't need this. They're paying me minimum wage. Man, I'll tell you everything. Just don't kill me. I will disappear and you will never see me again. And we said, smart decision.
All right, bet.
And then Dio, realizing that the Cantable had been requisitioned, said, I'm not losing another ship. So we accidentally got into a fight on behalf of the Navy against the Druidic Council, and nearly terrified the Navy out of their skulls because they've never seen Dio pilot a ship, and he had to pull off the maneuver. The maneuver is terrifying if you've never physically experienced it, the maneuver is terrifying. If you've ever watched it, the maneuver is petrifying. The maneuver involves Dio taking the ship and plunging it at a perfect angle so that when it pops back up, it is rocketing at high speeds and can basically outrun anything going after it. And if you're not skilled enough as a captain to pull it off, you're going to crash your boat into the ocean, which is exactly what the Druidic Council did. So we managed to keep the ship, and the Navy basically said, well, since you're the captain and you've come back, you can have your ship back, sort of, kind of. Don't worry about it. Then we met Ninehill's Reaper, who wanted to know what the fuck we learned in the temple, and we said, eat shit. And then a bunch of assassins were going after Ninehill's Reaper. We got caught in the crossfire. We briefly had to kick the snot out of them. Ninehill's Reaper, by the way, is a high general of the army, or the Navy. He's got true sight because he ate a demon's heart in public, and he's fucking terrifying. Just fucking terrifying. That's the only way I can describe him. But we managed to get back to port, back to the location Frath told us to meet at once we finally got an actual message to him. And we got back into the tower, re-met up with our crew. I learned that for some reason Bellamy and Morgaine are fighting, and
Oh no.
that it brings you up pretty much to speed.
Your two husbands?
I don't know what to call them. I think I call them boyfriends most of the time.
Do you know how, well, at least dragons in my realm marry?
Yeah, the few dragons I've met have been chaotic. The first one at least had a kid. We've met the kid. He's a bit brash and a bit stupid, but he's funny. Wants to beat Dio in a fight at one point because Dio managed to beat his father in an arm wrestling match with the help from some fire giant strength potions. Met the other one. The other one was part of a hag coven with a demon and something else, and we had to kill her. Met a young baby dragon that got eaten by Remoraz, but we didn't actually meet it. It just sort of popped up and then it got eaten by Remoraz. I think that's all the dragons I've met. At least the ones that have been confirmed dragons. I've possibly met others who, just hadn't confirmed to me specifically that they are indeed dragons. So,
Alright. Well, the reason I mentioned it was that it's so much simpler for dragons to marry. You just take your pile of gold and you shuffle it into the other dragon's hoard of gold, and you just shuffle it around until you can't tell the difference. And then you're married.
Merge the houses.
Yeah. So much simpler than having to invite people.
That seems very efficient.
Yeah.
What happens if you break up? If you jump into things too quickly?
You fight over the horde.
My father murdered my mother, so I mean, it's not a perfect system.
Yeah, that'll do it. That'll definitely do it.
Like I said, you fight over the horde.
Yeah.
That's how the wars goes, I guess.
It ensures that you're together until death do you part.
Yeah,
I feel like there's gotta be a healthier system, but
definitely. But I also try not to question dragons too much, Again, like I said, at least 2 of the 3 I have met have tried to kill me.
that's fair.
Well, now you met 2 that hasn't tried to kill you. How about that?
Yeah, that's a pleasant change of pace. I'd like to meet more people who at some point don't want to kill me.
Well, if you have more adventures and manage to fix the relationship between your boyfriends, you're welcome to come back.
Thank you.
You don't need holy water this time either.
Yeah, no, I thank the gods for that. I'll leave the holy water on the counter. good luck with your friend. Don't know if it'll do any good, but, it's blessed by a cleric candle, so maybe it'll help.
We have no idea at this point. We don't know what's going on with that boy.
Yeah, a little less waxy than the stuff I was dealing with, but, it'll work.
All right. Well, we should probably send you back.
Yeah, that might help. I don't think I could, walk out the cupboard the same way I walked in. That'd be.
I mean, you can always try.
I'd love to, but really, I need to get shit started. So.
All right. Well, until we see you again, have a good awakening.
If I open any more, we're gonna be here for another 6 hours.
Just slams down a tome. All right, volume 1.